On the way home from a huge Easter family gathering in Charleston when I was 16, my life shattered in a single moment. Somewhere along Interstate 26, my car was caught in a catastrophic accident. The doctors told me I needed emergency surgery within the next hour or I wouldn't survive. That same afternoon, my mother and my little sister were enjoying treatments at an upscale spa. When the hospital put her on speakerphone, her response was so cold that even the trauma team froze. "If she doesn't make it, just tell me later. We're in the middle of a session and I'm not signing anything right now. My name is Serenity Carver and today I am 21. But back then, after 18 days suspended between life and death, I finally opened my eyes. At the foot of my bed, the chart had been changed quietly, almost reverently. My mother's name had vanished from the legal guardian line. Someone else had taken her place. And that new guardian was the person who chose me at the exact moment my own mother walked away. If you've ever watched the people who were supposed to love you turn their backs the moment you needed them most, you're not alone. I've seen your comments, your stories. And if you want to know who stepped forward for me when everything fell apart, stay with me because this story only becomes more unbelievable from here. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a large white house on James Island just outside Charleston. My father died of leukemia when I was 6. One week he was steadying my bike in the driveway. The next week he was gone. After the funeral, only one person kept showing up every weekend without fail. My mother's father, Clarence Brooks, a man the entire county knew as the former police chief who never truly retired. Everyone in the county knew him as the former police chief who never truly stepped away from service. He had simply traded his badge for a fishing rod and a porch swing. He'd rumble up in his old Ford pickup, bring me warm shrimp and grits from his favorite spot on Shem Creek, and let me ride in the front seat while he spun stories about chasing bootleggers down winding country roads. To me, he wasn't Grandpa Clarence. He was just Grandpa, the only adult who never failed me. My mother, Harmony Carver, mourned my father for about a year. Then she met Colin Reed at a downtown charity gala. Colin owned nearly half of the new developments on Kiowa Island and drove a sleek black Range Rover that always smelled like fresh leather. 2 years later, they held a beachfront wedding, one I barely remember except for the sound of waves and distant applause. 9 months after that, Haven was born, blonde, loud, and instantly the center of everything. Overnight, the house transformed. A nursery appeared. A nanny was hired. New rules replaced old ones. My bedroom was pushed to the back corner above the garage, so Haven could have the larger room with the balcony. My soccer trophies vanished into cardboard boxes. My mother started introducing me, not by name but as my older daughter, as if I were a background character in someone else's perfect family portrait. By the time I turned 14, I had become almost invisible. Colin covered every bill, but he never acknowledged me unless I happened to be standing where he didn't want me. Haven received brand new outfits every season while I wore hand-me-down uniforms from a private school I didn't even attend. The only place where I still felt seen was Grandpa's little brick house in West Ashley, about 20 minutes across the Ravenel Bridge. He kept my old bike hanging in his garage, kept the freezer full of popsicles, and never once questioned why I spent every single weekend there. Easter weekend when I was 16 was supposed to feel different. Grandpa hosted his yearly cookout, 3 long tables under the live oaks, a low country boil steaming in giant pots, deviled eggs, sweet tea in mason jars. Cousins I hadn't hugged in years flew in from everywhere. Music played, kids dashed across the yard, and the air smelled like charcoal and sunshine. I wore the pale yellow sundress Grandpa had bought me the month before, saying it matched my eyes. For a little while, it felt like the past, like I still had a place in this family. Then I heard my mother's voice behind the dessert table. She was laughing, telling someone that she and Haven had booked a mother-daughter spa day for the next morning. Facials, massages, the full treatment. And after that, they'd be flying to the Bahamas for spring break. Just the 3 of them, her, Colin, and Haven. My name floated into the conversation, and I froze. I stood there, holding a plate of banana pudding, until it turned cold in my hands. I told Grandpa I had a headache and needed to leave early. He tried to talk me out of it, worry lining his eyes, but I just needed to get away. He finally pressed the keys into my palm, the keys to the 1998 Jeep Wrangler he'd helped me buy with my summer lifeguard money. "Drive careful, baby girl. Text me when you get home." I promised I would. By the time I merged onto Interstate 26 westbound, the sky was already dimming. A spring storm rolled in fast the way they always do in the Low Country, turning everything an eerie green. Rain hammered the windshield in thick sheets. The wipers battled furiously and still couldn't keep up. Traffic slowed to a crawl. I cranked up the radio to stay awake, some old country song Grandpa loved. Headlights smeared into long streaks of white and red across the wet glass. I never saw the tractor trailer until the moment it was already too late. The driver hydroplaned, jackknifed across 3 full lanes, and slammed into the driver's side of my Jeep at no less than 60 miles an hour. Metal shrieked, glass burst. The world spun once, twice before the roof buckled inward and the Jeep finally skidded to a halt upside down against the concrete median. I remember the seatbelt tearing into my shoulder, the metallic taste of blood, the eerie silence that followed the impact, and then nothing. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed their way toward me. The emergency room at MUSC was pure chaos. Doctors barked codes. Monitors blared. Someone shouted for more. Oh, negative. They rushed me straight into Trauma Bay 1. My clothes were cut away in seconds. Needles pierced both arms. A tube was pushed down my throat. A surgeon, his scrubs stained with blood, leaned over me and said in a voice that felt miles away, "Your pelvis is shattered. Your spleen is ruptured. You're bleeding inside your skull. We have less than an hour before things become irreversible. We need parental consent for the operating room right now." A nurse with gentle eyes grabbed my phone, scrolled to my mother's name and hit FaceTime. The call connected on the 3rd ring. Spa music drifted through the speaker, soft and detached, along with the hum of massage chairs. My mother's face appeared, sheet mask still on cucumber slices balanced over her eyes. Beside her, Haven lounged on the next table, earbuds and scrolling TikTok. "Mrs. Reed, this is Nurse Alvarez from MUSC Trauma," the nurse said, tilting the camera so Harmony could see my blood-covered face and the ventilator tube. "Your daughter has been in a severe accident. Her injuries are critical. We need verbal consent for immediate surgery, or she may not survive the next hour." Harmony casually lifted one cucumber slice and squinted at the screen. Haven removed an earbud, leaning closer with mild curiosity. A doctor stepped into view. "Ma'am, we're dealing with multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and possible brain swelling. We must operate immediately." Harmony exhaled, long annoyed, as if someone had asked her to move her car from a reserved parking spot. "If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over," she said, tone flat. "We're in the middle of a treatment, and I'm not driving all the way downtown to sign anything." Haven let out a sharp little laugh. She covered her mouth theatrically, then raised her phone and snapped a screenshot of my broken face on the gurney. I watched her thumbs dance across the screen, sending the image to someone before the call even ended. Later I would learn the caption Haven sent to her group chat read, "Finally some peace." The nurse's hand trembled as she held the phone. A doctor behind her muttered, "Jesus Christ." Someone else whispered, "Make sure that's recorded." The nurse tried once more. "Ma'am, we legally need consent for a minor." But Harmony cut her off, voice cold and impatient. "Call my father, Clarence Brooks. He'll handle it. We paid for a full day here." And she ended the call. The trauma team stared at the blank screen in stunned silence. One resident looked like he might hurl the phone across the room. They immediately scrolled to the next emergency contact, Grandpa. His old Ford pickup was already rumbling down the road when the hospital reached him. Moments earlier, he'd been sitting on his porch, cleaning shrimp for the next day's supper. The instant he heard the words serenity and critical, he dropped everything and tore across the Ashley River Bridge, still in rubber boots and an apron streaked with fish blood. Rain hammered the windshield. Lightning flickered across the sky. The drive that normally took 25 minutes, he made it in 16. He burst through the ER doors, drenched to the skin, the badge from 3 decades ago still clipped to his belt out of habit. The charge nurse took one look at the retired chief and waved him straight back without a single question. He signed every consent form shoved toward him, hands shaking so violently the pen scratched the paper. They allowed him into the trauma bay just long enough to see me, tubes everywhere, face swollen almost beyond recognition. He leaned close to my ear and whispered the same words he used whenever I woke from nightmares as a little girl, "I've got you, baby girl. Grandpa's right here." Then they rushed me into surgery. He pulled a metal chair up to the glass wall outside the operating room and sat down, and he didn't move. He didn't move for the next 9 hours. Not when nurses brought him coffee. Not when the waiting room emptied out. Not even when the storm outside knocked out the power for 12 long minutes before the backup generators hummed to life. When they finally wheeled me to the ICU just before dawn, he walked beside the bed, still clutching the same cold hand that had gone limp hours earlier. The following 18 days became the longest stretch of Grandpa's life. The ICU smelled of antiseptic and fear. Machines hissed and beeped in a relentless rhythm that reminded everyone how thin the line between staying and slipping away truly was. Grandpa claimed the vinyl recliner beside my bed and refused to leave. The nurses tried to send him home that first night. He simply showed them the old badge tucked inside his wallet and said quietly but firmly, "I'm not going anywhere." After that, no one argued. He slept in short bursts of 30 minutes, head tipped back, mouth open, boots still on. Whenever he woke, he talked to me in a soft voice so the monitors wouldn't drown him out. He told me about the night I was born, how he held me first because my mother was too exhausted. He repeated the story of the summer I was 8, and we caught a 5-foot shark off Folly Beach Pier, how I screamed until he finally let me reel it in myself. He read aloud from his weathered copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, the one he kept tucked in the truck, doing every voice with full commitment. Some evenings he didn't speak at all. He just hummed the old hymn his own mother used to sing when he was small, the one that always lulled me to sleep on his couch. Doctors drifted in and out. One morning, the neurologist announced that the swelling in my brain had decreased. Another afternoon, the orthopedic surgeon warned that my pelvis might never heal straight. Grandpa listened, nodded, asked questions sharp enough to make residents sweat, and then went straight back to holding my hand as if nothing in the world could shake him from that vigil. By day 16, the numbers on my monitors finally started shifting in the right direction. My blood pressure steadied. The ventilator settings were lowered. A nurse even caught Grandpa smiling for the first time in 2 long weeks. That same afternoon, while he leaned close, whispering that the redfish were running and we'd go cast a line the minute I opened my eyes, a tall man in a navy suit appeared at the glass door. Mr. Donovan. He had worked cases with Grandpa 25 years earlier. They still played poker once a month. Grandpa glanced up, saw the thick folder in Donovan's hand, and gave a single, slow nod. No words necessary. Donovan turned left the hospital, climbed into his silver Lexus, and drove straight to James Island. He didn't need GPS, he knew that address by heart. Inside the foyer, Harmony and Haven were surrounded by piles of designer luggage. 2 matching pink suitcases sat by the door, tags already attached for a 7-night Royal Caribbean cruise departing Charleston Harbor the next morning. Colin was upstairs on a work call. Haven stood in front of her phone, filming herself twirling in a new sundress for Instagram. Harmony was double-checking the passports. The doorbell rang. Donovan introduced himself, handed over the heavy envelope, and waited as Harmony tore it open. Inside were 2 sets of documents. An emergency petition to strip parental rights for medical neglect of a minor. A civil suit filed by the hospital for extraordinary life-saving expenses plus pain and suffering, both named Harmony Reed. And because Haven was 14 and had actively participated in refusing consent, her name appeared as well. Harmony's face drained pale beneath the spray tan. Haven froze mid-spin, the recording still running. "You have 72 hours to respond," Donovan said quietly. "After that, the judge has already approved an emergency hearing." Harmony exploded, shouting about lawyers' mistakes and how dare anyone question her parenting. But Donovan was unmoved. His job wasn't to argue, it was simply to deliver the truth. Haven burst into loud theatrical sobs, insisting she hadn't meant anything by the texts. Donovan didn't react. He simply turned, walked back to his car, and drove away. Inside the house, Harmony slid down the wall, clutching the papers as black rivers of mascara streaked down her cheeks. Haven kept shrieking that her spring break was ruined. Colin came downstairs, glanced at the documents, and went ghost white. Back at the hospital, Grandpa never mentioned Donovan's visit. He stayed exactly where he had been, holding my hand, humming that same old hymn, waiting for the moment my eyes would finally open. 2 days later they did. Everything hurt. My mouth tasted like metal and plastic. The machine still beeped, but softer now, like a distant metronome. The first face I saw was Grandpa's unshaven, red, rimmed, and smiling so wide I thought his cheeks might split. "Hey baby girl," he whispered, voice trembling. "Welcome back." I tried to speak, but only a rough rasp escaped. He pressed the call button, then lifted the whiteboard from the foot of my bed so I could read it. Written in bold black letters, "Legal Guardian Clarence Brooks." I stared until the words blurred. Tears streamed sideways into my ears. He brushed them away with a thumb that still carried the faint scent of shrimp and salt air. Over the next few hours, between nurses checking vitals and doctors shining lights into my eyes, he told me everything. The FaceTime call, my mother's exact words, Haven's screenshot, the papers served while I lay unconscious. He didn't soften the truth. He never had. I cried again, harder this time. Not from physical pain, but from a sense of relief so profound it felt like drowning in reverse. 3 weeks later, they released me from the hospital. Not to James Island, but to Grandpa's little gray house on stilts in Folly Beach, 15 minutes south of the city. The moment he carried me through the door, the salt air filled my lungs. My new bedroom had once been his fishing tackle room. He had painted the walls a gentle pale blue and rehung the same wind chimes we made together when I was 9. From the window, the ocean stretched out, steady, endless, comforting. Physical therapy began the following Monday. I relearned how to sit up, then stand, then shuffle behind a walker while Grandpa stayed beside me, spotting me like I was 2 years old again. He cooked shrimp and grits every single night because it was soft enough for my wired jaw. We watched the sunset from the porch swing, his arm draped gently around my shoulders, neither of us needing to fill the silence. The quiet felt like healing. One afternoon, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up with my mother's name. I stared at it for 10 full rings. Grandpa stood in the doorway saying nothing, simply waiting to see what I would choose. I pressed decline, set the phone face down, and returned to the porch. That was the only time she ever tried. Across town, that same week, Colin filed for divorce. His company had just secured a massive contract with the Port Authority, and the last thing he wanted was news headlines linking him to child abandonment. He moved out of the James Island house before the ink even dried, taking only his clothes and his golf clubs. Haven unraveled on social media for about 3 days, then suddenly went silent when colleges began withdrawing scholarship offers. Grandpa never mentioned any of it unless I asked, and when I did, he always answered plainly, "They made their choice, Wren. Now we make ours." Some nights the pain jolted me awake, screaming. Grandpa would shuffle in wearing his old police academy sweatshirt, sit on the edge of the bed, and hold my hand until the medication finally dulled the ache. Other nights I woke to the sound of him praying in the living room, voice rough, asking God to give him enough years to see me whole again. By the time the stitches were removed and the casts replaced with braces, I could walk the length of the pier without stopping. Grandpa bought 2 rods and a bucket of shrimp. We sat at the far end where the water deepens to dark green lines, catching almost nothing and not minding at all. The sun burned the last traces of hospital air off my skin. One evening, I looked out at the horizon wind, whipping my hair across my face, and I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for an apology, not for an explanation, not for a second chance I never wanted to give. The ocean kept moving forward. And so would I. A couple of months later, the preliminary hearing arrived. The courthouse on Broad Street smelled of old wood and floor wax, a scent that made everything feel more final. I walked into the courtroom on crutches, Grandpa steady on one side and Donovan on the other. My mother sat at the defendant's table wearing a navy suit that hung on her like it belonged to someone else, 2 sizes too big, eyes swollen, face bare of makeup. Haven slouched beside her in a private school blazer, staring hard at the floor. The judge, a woman with steel gray hair and absolutely no patience, adjusted her glasses and told the bailiff to roll the recording. The FaceTime call filled the big screen. My battered body strapped to the gurney, spa music drifting in the background. My mother's voice cold, unshaken, saying, "If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over." Haven's sharp laugh. The screenshot of my blood-covered face with her caption beneath it. The entire courtroom froze. Someone in the back actually gasped. Donovan stepped forward and placed the phone records on the bench. Haven had forwarded the photo to 7 separate group chats within 4 minutes. One message read, "One less person stealing my spring break." The judge's pen went still. She stared at my mother for a long, hard moment. "Mrs. Reed," she said, voice like ice. "In 23 years on this bench, I have never heard a parent speak about their child this way, while that child was fighting for her life." She pushed the file aside. "Temporary full custody is transferred to Clarence Brooks effective today. We will reconvene for the permanent hearing." She slammed the gavel so hard the sound cracked against the marble walls. 3 days later, Harmony was fired from her job at the South Carolina State Credit Union. Background checks are mandatory for anyone handling federal funds. Medical neglect of a minor is an automatic disqualifier. Security escorted her out, carrying a cardboard box. That same week, Haven's full-ride academic scholarship to the College of Charleston was revoked. The admissions board cited conduct incompatible with the values of the institution. Suddenly, the private high school that once worshipped her began whispering behind her back. Within a month, the James Island house fell into foreclosure. Colin's name had already been removed from the deed he'd signed everything over to protect his assets. Mother and daughter ended up in a small 2-bedroom apartment off Savannah Highway, the kind with peeling paint and an elevator that constantly broke down. Haven lost her car. Their fall was swift. And none of it changed the simple truth: they had made their choices. Harmony took a night shift stocking grocery shelves just to cover rent. Meanwhile, I began real therapy. Twice a week, a van came to pick me up for outpatient physical rehab at MUSC. I relearned how to climb stairs, how to balance on a Bosu ball, how to trust my legs again. Grandpa drove me every single time, never late, never tired, then waited in the lobby, flipping through the same 3 fishing magazines until I emerged, sweating and trembling. On Thursdays, I met with a trauma counselor named Dr. Rivera. We sat in a small lavender-scented office and talked about nightmares, fury, and the exact moment I realized I never wanted to hear my mother's voice again. Grandpa waited out in the truck windows, rolled down country music playing low, never once complaining about the heat. Some afternoons, when the pain in my hips roared too loudly, I sat on the back deck, tossing breadcrumbs to the gulls. Grandpa would join me with 2 sweet teas, and together we watched the tide slide away. He didn't try to fix my anger. He simply let me feel it. By the end of summer, I traded my crutches for a cane, then the cane for nothing at all. I still walked with a slight limp, but the doctor said most of it would fade by my 18th birthday. One evening, I managed to walk all the way to the end of Folly Pier and back without stopping. Grandpa met me halfway, carrying a blanket and a flashlight even though the sun hadn't disappeared yet. We sat together on the sand, shoes off, letting the waves curl around our toes. I leaned my head against his shoulder. "Thank you for staying," I whispered. He kissed the top of my head. "Nowhere else I'd rather be, baby girl." 7 months after the crash, the final trial day arrived. I walked into the courtroom without crutches, without a cane, without a limp. The scar on my forehead was still pink, but my posture was steady. Grandpa sat right behind me in his Sunday suit, the same one he wore to my dad's funeral. Harmony looked smaller than I remembered, hair pulled tight, clutching a tissue she never lifted. Haven stared ahead, arms crossed so hard her knuckles whitened. Donovan called me to the stand first. I swore and sat down and met the judge's gaze. "Tell the court how it felt," he said, "knowing your mother refused to come while you were dying." I drew a breath. The entire room held still. "It felt like the last piece of me that still believed I mattered just died on that table," I said. My voice didn't tremble. I learned in one sentence that I was disposable, and the person who said it was the same woman who used to read me bedtime stories. I told them about waking up to Grandpa's name written on the Guardian line. About the single call from my mother I never returned. About every night I fell asleep listening to the ocean instead of wondering why I wasn't enough. Harmony's lawyer tried desperately to paint her as stressed, overwhelmed somehow, a victim of circumstance. He mentioned her job loss, the foreclosure, the divorce. I never looked at her, not once. When he finally finished, the judge asked if I had anything to add. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "I don't want her money. I don't want her apologies. I just want this to end. I already have a family." The judge didn't deliberate long. She returned 20 minutes later with her decision. Permanent termination of parental rights for Harmony Reed, effective immediately. Civil judgment in favor of the plaintiff and the hospital, $480,000. The James Island home to be sold at auction to satisfy the lien. And then the words that changed my life: Mr. Clarence Brooks is granted full legal adoption. The gavel cracked like the beginning of a race. Outside in the hallway, reporters fired off questions. I ignored every one of them, took Grandpa's arm, and stepped into the October sunlight. 3 weeks later, the bank padlocked the big white house. A moving truck arrived for the few things Harmony and Haven chose to keep. They loaded boxes into an aging sedan and drove north on Interstate 26, headed somewhere cheaper, somewhere no one knew their names. I never asked where. That same month, the adoption papers arrived in the mail. I signed Serenity Brooks for the first time, and cried harder than the day I woke from the coma. Grandpa framed the certificate above the fireplace, right beside my dad's old service photo. I started my senior year at an alternative school, 10 minutes from Folly Beach, small classes, teachers who genuinely cared, and nobody who knew my story unless I chose to share it. I made the honor roll every quarter, and was accepted early decision to the College of Charleston, close enough to come home every night if I wanted. Graduation day arrived warm and windy. I wore a pale blue cap and gown, the exact shade of the bedroom walls Grandpa painted just for me. When they called my name, the entire senior class rose to their feet and cheered, because by then everyone knew who had carried me through the darkest stretch of my life. Grandpa waited at the bottom of the steps in his dress uniform medals, gleaming eyes shining with pride. I ran to him, wrapped my arms around his neck and let him lift me off the ground as if I still weighed nothing at all. 5 years have passed since that Easter Sunday. I'm 21 now, a psychology diploma framed on my wall, working as a family trauma counselor at a nonprofit just over the bridge in Mount Pleasant. Every day I sit across from teenagers who believe no one will ever choose them, and I get to tell them they're wrong. Because someone chose me when the people who were supposed to love me most walked away without even glancing back. Grandpa turned 77 last month. He still mows the yard himself, still catches more fish than any charter captain on the island, still makes the best shrimp and grits in the entire state. The house on stilts hasn't changed. The wind chimes still sing. The porch swing still creaks. The old coffee pot is always half full. My bedroom remains pale blue. His old tackle room is still a bedroom because neither of us ever saw a reason to turn it back. Most evenings we eat dinner on the deck, watching dolphins chase mullet through the surf. He calls me baby girl exactly once a day, usually when he hands me a glass of sweet tea. I still call him Grandpa. Nothing else fits. Harmony and Haven left South Carolina for good 3 years ago, and the silence that followed was the cleanest peace I had ever known. Last I heard, they were somewhere in Georgia renting a small trailer under different last names. I never looked for them. They never looked for me. The silence is clean. It's final. It's peace. People sometimes ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Rage takes energy I decided to spend on living instead. Others ask if I forgive. Forgiveness isn't mine to hand out. It's theirs to earn, and they never made an effort. I'm simply done. What I do carry is gratitude so deep it still takes me by surprise. Gratitude for the man who slept in a vinyl chair for 18 nights. For the retired chief who never missed a single therapy session. For the grandfather who turned his house into a home and his heart into a harbor. Family isn't the people who share your blood. Family is the one who stays when your blood runs cold on an operating table. Family is the person who signs the papers, holds your hand, and never once lets you feel like a burden. If you're listening to this and you're scared if you think you don't have that person, look harder. They exist. Sometimes they're the grandparent you never expected to need. Sometimes they're a friend, a teacher, a neighbor who refuses to walk away, and when you find them, hold on. Because real family isn't born. It's chosen every single day. Especially on the days when choosing you costs them everything. That's the truest thing I know. And that is my story.